Welcome everybody, so glad you could join me today. So today's fertility scope is going to be all about estrogen and fertility. I get a lot of questions about what to do about excess estrogen, what to do about low estrogen. So I'm going to talk about estrogen and fertility and what you can do to either decrease it or lower it or increase it depending on what's going on for you. My name is Heather Rodriguez. I am a natural fertility specialist and the founder of the Natural Fertility Company. My team and I help couples who are preparing for pregnancy, those overcoming fertility issues, or anyone who's preparing for medical fertility treatments. My background is as an herbalist and nutritionist, and I've owned my company since 2007. We've helped thousands and thousands of couples to overcome their fertility issues and become pregnant naturally. Okay, so estrogen and fertility. So we talk about estrogen a lot when we're talking about fertility and fertility issues. And a lot of times estrogen comes across as the bad guy. Part of the reason for that is because so many people have excess estrogen, but estrogen isn't the bad guy. Estrogen is very vital and very important for fertility. It's just when things get out of balance, we end up having estrogen seem like the bad guy. But it's not. It's just a hormone, and when things are out of balance, then we have issues. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what estrogen actually is and how it works in the body so you guys have an understanding of what we're trying to do here and why it's important for estrogen to be balanced. So the first part of your cycle, there's the menstrual cycle, or your whole month of cycle, we'll say is 30 days. There's the menstrual cycle, ovulation, then post-ovulation to your period. So keep that in mind when we're talking about hormones and when things are occurring and being released. So the first half of your cycle is going to be the follicular phase. This is from your period until you ovulate. So follicular phase means your follicles are growing and maturing. So at this time, follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, is released, and that causes your follicles to mature. And that means that your eggs are getting ready to ovulate and everything is maturing. So once FSH is released, that causes the follicles to grow. Once the follicles begin growing, they're going to release estrogen. Estrogen is released by the ovaries, the follicles within the ovaries. So those mature, release estrogen, and then at a specific point, you're going to release, rising estrogen causes the body to release luteinizing hormone, LH. That is what causes you to ovulate, is that surge in LH. That's what you can detect on an OPK test, okay? So once that happens, estrogen is also helping to thicken the lining of your uterus at that time. And then once the follicle releases the egg, and then that turns into a corpus luteum, then progesterone is released from that. So that's kind of an idea of how estrogen is affecting you during your monthly cycle. During the first half is kind of its main show. That's when it's really working. But it's going to be used by your body throughout your cycle. So during the second part of your cycle from ovulation until either you're period or you're pregnant, it's helping to thicken the lining of the uterus and do lots of things in the body, but specifically for fertility, that's what it's doing. So keep that in mind. So estrogen is needed. We need it to mature and help with ovulation and to mature the lining of the uterus. So keep that in mind. Estrogen is not bad. Excess estrogen or low estrogen, either of those is going to be an imbalance that can cause lots of issues for you. So there's a lot of different types of estrogen. The one that I'm mainly talking about is estradiol. I say estrogen to keep things simple. A lot of these topics can get super complicated, so I try to keep it simple as possible so you can be empowered to make decisions for yourself and take steps for your health. So a couple of signs of, we're going to talk about estrogen excess and estrogen deficiency. So they're two totally different things. So estrogen deficiency is when you have low estrogen. That's going to show up in your life as headaches, hot flashes, night sweats, and vaginal dryness. That sounds like menopause, right? That's what is happening when women are going through menopause. Their estrogen is taking a dive and they're getting these hot flashes and all these different things happening. This isn't as common when you're trying to conceive during that age, in that age group, but it does happen. So some of the reasons estrogen deficiency occur can be because there's too little luteinizing hormone being released. So the pituitary gland needs to be supported. And there's also, it might be because of being underweight, pituitary gland issue, over exercising. So it's going to be kind of a situation when there's not enough support in the body, where there's too much depletion, if you're going to kind of look at it maybe in a traditional Chinese medicine way. Excess estrogen is going to be opposite. So some of the signs of excess estrogen might be irregular periods, headaches, anxiety, depression, weight gain, and this can be caused by a lot of factors that you have control over. So this is something that we work a lot with, more often than estrogen deficiency. So it can be caused by factors like poor diet, being overweight, stress, and environmental factors. And those are all things we can have an impact on. And also, one of the main environmental factors, which we're going to talk about, is xenoestrogens. So estrogen dominance shows up for a lot of people in when it gets stronger and predominant as PCOS and endometriosis. So those are considered estrogen dominant conditions. Okay. You also can have estrogen dominance and imbalances with estrogen without having those issues. Those are just part of that group. All right, so what can you do about it? You know what estrogen is, you know what it does in the body, and you know kind of what signs of estrogen dominance may be. It's something that's pretty prevalent in our society. I'm sure that many of you can relate. There might be some of those things that you're experiencing. So this is what you can do about it. So what's great is you can have an effect on it. The not so great news is it's going to take some time and lifestyle changes. So I think you're up for that though. Totally worth it. So there's just a couple steps to take. The first is going to be to focus on, step one would be cleansing, fertility cleansing. You're going to hear it over and over again for a very good reason. We want to support the liver because one of the liver's main roles in the body is to help metabolize and get rid of excess hormones, specifically estrogen. That's usually the one we have excess in. Some women have excess testosterone as well. But the liver, that's one of its main roles. So we want to support the liver in that function. So the fertility cleanse, half the cleanse is completely focused on the liver, helping the liver to detoxify on its own. Then the second part of the cleanse focuses on hormonal balance and helping to increase circulation to the ovaries and the uterus, which is going to be super important for producing hormones and hormonal health. The next is to eat fiber. Like, that's probably the cheapest tip on the planet. Eat more fiber. Does so much for estrogen metabolism. Fiber helps the body to get rid of excess estrogens from the system. Simple. You can find fiber in leafy green vegetables, beans, whole grains. It's in almost every single whole food except for animal products. You're going to want to avoid xenohormones. I'll go into detail on that in just one second. And then also use herbs for support. So the herbs you're going to use for support will be different depending on if you need to decrease estrogen or help to balance out excess estrogen, or if you need to increase estrogen or help balance out an estrogen deficiency. So first I'm going to share with you some of the herbs for estrogen deficiency when you have too low of estrogen. And you'll notice some of these herbs are going to be the same, and there's a reason for that. When we're working with hormonal balance or helping the body to balance its own hormones naturally, we're focusing on supporting systems of the body. We're not adding hormones to the body. We're not taking away hormones. We're helping the body to do it itself. So we're going to support the glands and the systems that produce and communicate for hormonal balance. Okay, so that's why some of these are going to be similar. So the first is going to be, guess what? Maca. I talk about maca a lot for a very good reason. Maca is a root from Peru that is very nutrient dense, that's amazing at helping to support hormonal balance within the body. If you have too much estrogen, it's going to help balance that. If you have estrogen deficiency, it's going to help balance that because it's a food for the endocrine system. It's going to help support the endocrine system, which in turn is going to make that balancing effect happen. So maca, incredible for endocrine system. Another herbal blend that would be very helpful if you have estrogen deficiency, and I'll talk about excess estrogen right after this, is going to be Fertility Phase 1 and 2. This is an herbal program that I put together that helps to balance and regulate hormones. This is specific for when you are trying to conceive. It's going to be these guys. So those have the herbs in them that help with supporting the endocrine system and the various glands of the body that are producing your fertility hormones. The next thing is royal jelly. Royal jelly helps to slightly increase estrogen in the body if that is what's needed. If it's not needed, it's just going to help to support your fertility overall and to help support you because it's so nutrient dense. So royal jelly is awesome. I'm a beekeeper and I have 4 hives, and since I started beekeeping a couple years ago, I've learned a lot about what how bees are made and how the queen comes about and all of that. And royal jelly is incredible. So when bees are laying eggs and they're making more bees, the only way that they make a bee, the only way they make a queen is she starts the same. She's the same egg as everybody else, but they will only feed her royal jelly. That's all she eats. She grows to be twice the size of them. She looks like a huge, gigantic insect compared to the rest of the bees. And she lays hundreds of eggs a day, thousands of eggs. It's unbelievable. And she'll live up to 7 years. Whereas the other bees maybe will live a month. They don't live very long because they work themselves to death. They're amazing. Anyways, I love bees. So they produce a substance called royal jelly. And that's one of the superfoods that we use to help support overall fertility because it's so nutrient dense. So it's like a creamy substance. You can get a liquid form, which you put in smoothies, or you can eat off a spoon. I have to tell you, it's not the best tasting thing on the planet. You can get used to it though. So our product is mixed with honey and a couple other ingredients, so it tastes better. But you can also get capsules. So royal jelly, fantastic for helping to support estrogen deficiency. Another one is going to be Vitex. Vitex is another herb that I talk about so much because we use it and get such great results from it. Vitex helps to support the pituitary gland. And if you remember the beginning of this, I was talking about how when estrogen's used, how the cycle works. And one of the first steps of the cycle is when follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, is released so that the follicle begins to mature. That's done by the pituitary gland. So Vitex helps to support the pituitary gland in its function. Okay, following me? So by taking Vitex, we're helping to support the endocrine system, part of the endocrine system, and that is balanced, and then everything else follows suit. So Vitex is awesome. I have some Vitex here. So you can see, let's see if you can see that. They're berries. They smell really good too. They're very fragrant little berries. They're very hard. They're almost like peppercorns. They're a lot like peppercorns. But peppercorns don't have the same action, so don't go eat a bunch of pepper, okay? The last is going to be soy foods. So you'll hear me talk when I talk about diet and foods to avoid that I talk about avoiding processed soy products. For the reason is soy products they're phytoestrogenic. They have the ability to mimic estrogen in the system. When you're having an estrogen deficiency, it might be helpful to actually eat soy because it's going to possibly help to increase your estrogen levels. So that would be a case where you would want to add soy foods to your diet, would be with low estrogen. Okay, so that's what you would do and do more research and learn more about this, but that's what you would look into for estrogen deficiency. Maca root, Fertility Phase 1 and 2, royal jelly, Vitex, and soy foods. And this is something that you'll start to see a change within a cycle or two. Some soy foods, for example, would be tofu, edamame is great, tempeh. I would still stay away from the processed soy foods personally, but this is where it would be helpful. Okay, so herbs and supplements to help with estrogen dominance. I'm curious, how many, is this something that you guys are experiencing as estrogen dominance? Because it happens to be probably the more popular issue that we work with, which falls in line with PCOS, endometriosis, kind of shows up like that. So estrogen dominance, yes. So I think that's probably more common with everybody that's on here. So I spoke about the steps to take. They're going to be the same at the beginning, which is cleansing, fiber, avoiding xenohormones, and herbs for support. So everybody's saying yes. So this is going to be helpful for you guys. Yep, great. So herbs and supplements that may help with estrogen dominance, totally different situation. So this is where there's too much estrogen in the system. And when there's too much estrogen, it's going to cause imbalances with the other hormones because the hormones are constantly moving and there's an orchestra that's happening and they need to be in ratios during certain times of the cycle. Ooh, this is your monthly cycle. So say if your estrogen is too high in the second part of your cycle, that's going to overpower the progesterone because their ratio needs to be specific. It needs to be specific. So progesterone needs to be higher during this time, but if your estrogen is too high, then your progesterone's not too high, and ovulation may not occur, or the lining of your uterus may shed too early. Your cycles may be too long because nothing is stimulated. So that's why estrogen is causing some of these issues. So some of the reasons that I think we're seeing so much of this is because of environmental factors. I really do. it's because of the pesticides that we're consuming that's in our water supply. It's because of the plastics, that everything's in plastic. We are exposed to so much plastic, it's kind of crazy. I did a 30-day plastic-free challenge a couple years ago. I drove my husband crazy. And what the challenge was is you go plastic-free for 30 days. And you can't buy any new plastic or use any plastic. So we had to make everything from scratch because I couldn't buy spaghetti, I couldn't buy produce in bags, I couldn't buy any boxed items because there's plastic bag in them. And so it was really, really hard to go without plastic for 30 days. It was practically impossible. I had to make my yogurt from scratch, I had to make my pasta, everything. So my husband I was driving him nuts because he's like, I just want my yogurt. But I'm like, oh, we have to make it. So it was a really good experiment because you realize how much plastic there is in your life. I'm not saying you guys have to do this, but I realized through that experiment, wow, I use so much plastic just from eating. So, plastics, what all of these things do is they're xenoestrogens. They're man-made elements that act like estrogen in the body by going to the estrogen receptor site and filling it. And so then it activates it. But they're very strong. So they will overpower and cause a very strong estrogenic reaction. So, some other xenohormones are going to be from fluorescent lights, some additional chemicals found in feminine care products, and then there are phytoestrogens, and I'll talk about those in a second because they can be beneficial actually. Okay, so what to help with estrogen dominance? You guys ready? Listen to this. I have a little bit more water. All right, so the first is going to be DIM, diindolylmethane. Diindolylmethane. Let's call it DIM for short. Very hard to say. So this is a compound. This is one of my favorite supplements, actually. This is a compound that is made from cruciferous vegetables, that's found in cruciferous vegetables, that helps the body to metabolize bad estrogens, right? So it helps to create more metabolites in the body so the body can get rid of excess bad estrogens in the system. It's not going to do anything to your good estrogens or the estrogens that you need, the level of estrogens that you need to be healthy. It's when you have the excess that DIM comes in and works. So there's a couple things with DIM. Sure, you can get it from food. You totally can get it from broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Swiss chard, cruciferous vegetables. But you have to have it in ample amounts so that you can have the type of effect you're going for, especially when you're already in estrogen dominance. Okay? So this is something I definitely suggest to supplement with. This is DIM Complete. This is my DIM. This has it's got DIM in it, but it also has different elements to help with metabolizing DIM and digesting it. So I know that there's probably some of you on here that are taking DIM. Someone asked yesterday about this is going to get too much information, just so you guys know, the color of their urine. DIM can possibly change the color of your urine because of the metabolites. Just a little warning, it's totally fine, but it's an amazing supplement for helping the body to metabolize estrogen. That's our main go-to. In addition with DIM, we also love to use Maca again because we're helping to support the endocrine system so that it is balancing hormones naturally and it's helping to regulate your estrogen levels naturally. The other is going to be Vitex again because we're helping to support the pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland is helping to regulate that excess estrogen. It's food for the pituitary. It's very nutrient dense for the pituitary, or not nutrient dense, I'm sorry. It's very supportive for it so that it functions better. And then the last is going to be Fertility Phase 1 and 2, again, because we have herbs that support the endocrine system. We have herbs that are supporting liver health in there and helping to balance the hormones overall. So isn't it funny? This is the DIM, Fertilica. You can get this, my light is so bright you can't read it. You can get this at naturalfertilityshop.com. DIM Complete. I don't think you guys can see that because my light is so bright. Yeah. So I forgot what I was saying. Okay, so a word about phytoestrogens. So phytoestrogens are estrogenic type compounds found in food. They happen to be the weakest estrogenic compounds on this chart. So if we're looking at our own estrogens, then we're looking at environmental toxins that mimic estrogen. Phytoestrogens are going to be the weakest. So the good part about that is that a phytoestrogen will come in to a receptor site and fill that receptor site, but it has a weaker action. So it's not going to be as strong of an estrogenic action as a xenohormone or a chemical would. But what that means is that receptor site is taken, and that chemical and xenoestrogen from environmental toxins can't go into that receptor site and have its very strong action. So that's where phytoestrogens are actually helpful. Phytoestrogens are going to be anything from the legume family. You will find them in there. So eating beans on a daily basis, which also like lentils are very high in folate. So that's good as well, and they're very high in fiber. So don't overdo it, because that's how we get into the soy problem. But with legumes, they can be healthy if you're eating them on a daily basis because of their fiber and their phytoestrogenic compounds. So it's something to consider and see how you react with, especially if you do know that, say you work under fluorescent lights, you want to do something to help protect those receptor sites. So the weaker phytoestrogens are going to be better if you know you're going to be exposed to these xenoestrogens from the environment. Okay. So that's basically it. I hope you found today's class helpful. If you're looking for more information that pertains specifically to something that you're needing help with, go to naturalfertilityinfo.com. If you want to purchase any of our products, you can go to naturalfertilityshop.com. If you have questions, if you're on products and you have some questions, or if you don't know what to get, what to do, go to naturalfertilityshop.com and click on customer care and contact us. And what else? Yeah, and so I'll be on again tomorrow, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. See ya.